Dr. Elizabeth Hafer wants you to get your head on straight. In a world gone sideways, having balance and integrity in all areas of life leads to having confidence that breeds clarity. Clarity is essential to living an authentic life, and all the information shared on the Get Your Head On Straight podcast is designed to inspire you to live your life fulfilled. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Get Your Head On Straight with Dr. Elizabeth Hafer. I'm really excited about my guest today, Mr. Kamron Nahavandi, who is my personal financial advisor. He is located in Orange County, California, and he focuses on providing clients with top-notch customer service in the areas of retirement planning, wealth management, estate planning, life insurance, and full-service financial planning. His mission is to offer products and services to investment clientele using the highest standards of ethics and assisting individuals, families, and business owners in accumulating, preserving, and passing on their wealth beyond expectations. I'm so excited you're here with me, Kamron. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I have known Kamron Nahavandi for several years, and we were introduced by my friend Aurora, who was a massage therapist. She kept telling me about this great guy she knew who took care of financial stuff. And I was like, I don't have any money. What do I need with a financial planner? And she's like, don't worry, he'll help you make money. And I was like, okay. So I ended up meeting Kamron, and I talked him into getting chiropractic care. And then he talked me into letting him handle my finances. And I can proudly say he's helping me grow my money.
All right.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Kamron, I wanted to have you on my podcast because my podcast is all about getting your head on straight, as I said in my introduction. And for those of you that have been following my journey, get your head on straight has more implications than just physically. Literally, the work I do in Blair Chiropractic, of course. I want people to have access to really good information and cover all aspects of their lives. And finances is a huge aspect of a person's life. I wanted you to come on because you're the guy I trust with the money. And I guess I want to just go back to the beginning of our relationship because I think I got to see you before you convinced me to see you. So can you tell me how you look at financial health and how you monitor or test to see if somebody needs your services?
Similar to your industry, I do a complete checkup from head to toe. So when someone comes to see me or if I go to see them, I'm looking at their overall financial situation, not just with investments, but really just how they're doing in general financially, what their income is, what their expenses are, do they have adequate savings, do they have all the protections in place to protect themselves and their families. I really look at the whole spread. And go from there.
Yeah, I liked when I first met with you, you kind of sat down and did that. And then you found that there was an insurance policy that was actually a better fit for me than the one that I had. And it has this rider on there. So God forbid anything ever happened to me. I have this really neat policy where I have a little bit of kind of like an insurance. What is it called?
In your case, it's
disability. That's right. So yes, in case I can't work or I can't use my body to do my job, I can use my life insurance and get paid some money every month to cover what I would have been making had I been working.
Correct.
And I didn't know about that. So that was a really cool piece of information. And you also helped us kind of figure out our tax situation, and you have a ton of resources. Can you give me an example of some of the people you work with to help make this whole picture look good?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think of myself as the quarterback, but then I have an excellent team that I rely on, and that goes from insurance experts to estate planning attorneys to tax advisors, CPAs. Pretty much any challenge that I'm faced with a client, I know at least 2 or 3 experts in that field that I can turn to and get their second opinion so I can help the client.
That's awesome. Another thing that I liked that you did was you got out a piece of paper and you kind of drew a diagram out and you explained really complex financial understanding in a way that was really simple. I'm a pretty smart chick, but when it comes to all the different ways to diversify and understand this market and that market, you broke it down into an easy thing. Do you teach classes on this or?
I have taught classes before. Nowadays, the way that I do education for the financial industry is either doing some kind of seminar or webinar for a large group of people, or of course, when I do my one-on-one meetings, I'm all about education. So you're right. I do usually just show up to an appointment with nothing else but a notepad and a pen. And I just take a lot of good notes and then I just draw a bunch of pictures to help explain to that person how I can help them.
Well, I think that's awesome because you're kind of like the financial doctor. Because when I walk into a room with the patient, I don't have anything except for my mind.
Right.
A couple of tools after we get to the point where I feel like they do need an exam, but just being able to sit down and listen and talk to people and figure out what are you looking for? What are your needs?
Exactly.
That's awesome. I want to know why you got into becoming a financial advisor. Tell me your story.
Sure. So I almost didn't have a choice, actually. I grew up in the industry. My mother has been an advisor for about 25, 26 years now. And so I grew up in the industry helping her. I started working with her when I was 12.
Wow.
And I'm 38 now. So I've been in the industry for quite a while. And in 2007, I became a licensed advisor myself and have been helping clients since then. And the second reason why I do it really is just because A, I really love it. I love helping people. And B, I feel like people need that help now more than ever because there's a lot of information out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there. And so I think people are very confused, they're very frustrated, and they need help and they need guidance. And I feel like they're not getting it as much as they should. So I try to help in that way.
And why would somebody give misinformation? Because they simply don't know or?
This has kind of a loaded question. One thing I say to some of my clients when they are coming to me from having a bad experience with the previous advisor, and I don't know that advisor, so I can't really say for sure what the problem was, but I'll say either A, they didn't know any better, they just didn't have the right information to be able to help you, or B, they just weren't really good people and they wanted to do the wrong thing instead of the right thing. And to me, it's not terribly important to figure out which one of those is the case because the end result is still the same. You still end up with something that you shouldn't have ended up with. I just feel like there's a lot of advisors out there that they do mean well, but they're just not doing things the right way. And there may be some that don't even mean well, just like any other industry.
Right. I kind of relate to that because I do inherit a lot of people who have seen other chiropractors. And I try to tell my patients it's not that that chiropractor was doing anything bad per se. It's just they didn't have the same training. And I happen to have this specific Blair technique that is a little bit more advanced and more specific. And it's what you need. And obviously, the people who you used to see are helping some people because if they weren't, they wouldn't be in business, right?
Right.
So I completely relate to that. And you had mentioned just now that you said now more than ever, people need to have good information. What do you feel like the climate of financial health is today in 2018?
We're in an interesting time right now because we have more options available to us than ever before. We have more information available to us than ever before. We have access to things we didn't used to have before. And yet the dichotomy is we also have a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, a lot of people who just don't know where to even begin or how to start or what direction to go. Plus, as a society, we've really shifted in the last 30 years. If you think about 20, 30 years ago, you worked for a company for 30 years, you retired with a pension, Social Security took care of the difference, and maybe you happened to save money on your own, and you probably were working with a stockbroker, and if that stockbroker lost all that money, it wasn't too big of a deal because you still had your pension and your Social Security to live off of.
Pension, what's that?
Exactly. So nowadays, pensions are going away like the dinosaur, and Social Security isn't really cutting it anymore for people. So the larger emphasis is, what are you saving on your own? And is that going to be enough to retire off of? Now, if that same stockbroker loses that money in the stock market, you're in big trouble. So that's why I feel like people need guidance now more than they did ever before.
Right. And it's one thing to be a little bit riskier when you're, say, in your 30s, because you potentially have the ability to work for another 30 years.
Right.
So you can be a little bit more aggressive when you're younger. But you, from the experience that I've had, always recommend having a diversified portfolio.
That's correct. Whether you're 30 or 70, whether you have $5,000 or $5 million, I treat everyone the same in that I want them to have some of their money in the safe or guaranteed section of the portfolio where they don't have to worry about it. Some of their money can be in the market, which is fine. And then some of it can be in investments that are not even market-based. So even if the market crashes, it doesn't really affect that part of the portfolio. So I think everyone agrees you should have diversification, but not everyone agrees on what that actually means.
Right. And I like the way you look at it because you have this pie chart. What are the different aspects of that pie chart? Because I don't remember everything, but I know that one is risky, one is pretty even, and then the other one is like You tell it. You're the better guy at this.
Sure. You remembered well, so at least that's good.
I can be taught. Hallelujah.
You are one of the smarter cookies I work with. So there's 3 general categories in an investment portfolio that I create. The first one has the safe and the guaranteed stuff, so you don't have to worry about the market crashing. The second category is investments that are not tied to the market at all. So we call those alternatives. Those do what they do regardless of what's going on in the stock market, so you can rely on those. And then even the portion of the portfolio that's in the market, as opposed to just having a buy and hold strategy, just kind of roll the dice and hope for the best, we really watch the market, see what it's doing, and manage that part of the portfolio. So when the market is doing well, we're in it, we're growing, we're doing well. When it starts to go downwards, we pull the money out, we sit in cash, and we wait until it starts going up again.
That's cool. Can you tell me where real estate falls into that pie?
As an investment?
Mm-hmm.
You could have real estate in that second category that I talked about, the alternatives. So extremely simple example would be if you owned a piece of rental property and you were renting it out for $2,000 a month, and it was paid off, then you're making $2,000 a month income off that property. And that, in theory, is independent of what's going on in the stock market. So that would be considered an alternative.
I got you. Okay. Now, how would you recommend to even get started? Because I was always under the impression, because I didn't have a big chunk of money and I was out of school and I had some student loan debt, it was just getting by. And you were like, it doesn't matter. And I think you said earlier something about if you have 5,000 or 5 million, I look at you the same because you still have a need to want to protect what you have. So can you talk to the beginner investor or the beginner in getting their financial health in order and kind of give some encouragement to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to clarify the purpose of seeing a financial advisor, because I do get those people that say, I don't have any money to invest, so I shouldn't talk to you. That's kind of like saying, I'm not perfectly healthy, so I'm not going to go see my chiropractor.
Good call.
Usually you go see a chiropractor because there's something going on with your spine that you probably need some correcting or fixing. So the same should be true in the financial world. If you feel like you're not where you should be, quote unquote, with your finances, then that's reason to meet with a financial advisor. And to the beginner, I would say, don't worry about being a black belt your first day. Learn the basics like a white belt does, and eventually you'll get to the point where you're a black belt. Those basics are really what's the most important. Making sure you have adequate savings, making sure you have an emergency fund if, God forbid, something happens to you and you can't work, making sure you have all the right insurances in place to protect you and your family, the proper estate planning, if you have children, if you have a spouse, if you have a mortgage. Those are all things that you want to make sure you are safe and protected before you even worry about investing and making 20% in the stock market.
That's a really good foundation. And I was really grateful that you drilled that into me in the beginning, because I don't know that I would even still feel like I'm kind of above water and have these expendable dollars to invest. But if you just get started, like you said, and I think I've been working with you probably for like 6 years now, and we actually have stuff making money for us, and we have a little bit of savings, and I feel like our little portfolio is growing and it's diversified, and it's good because I am 38 just like you. Hopefully have another 30 years to work. And I understand that I'm not always going to be in this spot here where I'm paying off my student loans and where my kids are in school and I actually still have to pay for daycare. Right. Eventually those things are going to go away, and I'm going to have a place to put the money that I've worked for, which is really neat.
Exactly.
So can you tell me about a really cool case study? So for me, like, I'll tell a patient testimony where I had this person come in, they had this thing, and then they got better because I gave them an adjustment. Do you have a really cool story to tell about somebody that you helped and they were really excited?
Definitely. All of them.
All of them. Yes. I am one.
So I do have a person that I worked with who is in their 70s, and they were referred to me by their CPA. When I met with them, they had about $500,000 invested with another gentleman. And when I looked at that portfolio, it was all extremely high risk stuff. So if we were going to have a market crash, she was looking at possibly losing half of that portfolio.
Wow.
She didn't have any long-term care insurance. She didn't have any income coming to her. So she was working a part-time job just to try and pay her bills. She told me her main priority is not to lose this money. And so I thought, if that's your priority, then you shouldn't be in high-risk investments. Also, at your age, you should be retired. You should be enjoying yourself. You should spend more time with your kids and go hiking and do the things you love. Long story short, I was able to reallocate that portfolio in such a way that it started to provide her with more income than she was getting from her part-time job. So she was able to quit that job and spend more time with her kids. It also covered her if she ever had a long-term care situation come up. And it was mostly in the guaranteed section of the portfolio. So if the market crashed, she wouldn't have to worry about losing it.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So you let this lady have a retirement where she could do what she wanted to do, keep the money she already had, and got it growing.
Correct.
Yes, please. That sounds awesome. Good job.
Thank you.
Talk to me about the forecasting for long-term wealth development, because like I've talked about with these beginning investors, we want to start what do they say about planting a tree? The best time to do it is today or 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Same thing with being an investment person and taking care of your finances. So talk to me about long-term projection. What do you advise for your people where they've got years ahead of them?
So a few different things on that point. If you have a lot of time on your hands, if you're in your 20s or 30s and you're working, again, don't worry too much about putting 50 grand into an investment in the first day. Even just saving $50 a month or $100 a month over the next 20, 30 years will actually be a lot more money than you think. So start small and just have a consistent habit of saving money on the side. Long term, people get very caught up in the market cycles. So when the market's going up, they celebrate a little bit too much. And when it's going down, they panic a little bit too much. And you have to be able to zoom out and remember that for 100 years, the market's been going up. But what it does is it takes dips downward every 7, 8, 9 years or so. And that's just a normal market cycle. So if you have 20, 30, 40 years, then don't worry about those ups and downs, because generally speaking, over time, you're going to have enough money in the future. Now, if you're 60 or 65 and you're looking to retire in the next year or two, then it does matter where we are in the market cycle. And you do have less time to plan and prepare. So you want to make sure that most of your money is on the safe side and not on the aggressive side.
Oh, that's awesome. And I like how it's tailor-made to every unique circumstance, every unique situation.
Correct.
That's awesome. I was just sitting here thinking that 2008 is when I moved to California. So July will be a decade that I've been out here. And I moved out here during the Great Recession.
Right.
And gas was over $5 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
I moved here from the most affordable place in the country, Iowa, to Orange County. And I had absolutely no idea how it was going to work. But I had a plan and a purpose and a calling. And God said, go. And I said, okay. So it's been 10 years and all I've seen is growth, right? I've made more money every year. I've had more success every year. If the market has a little dip every 9 to 10 years, aren't we kind of ready for a reckoning at this point? Is that what you're seeing, or?
Well, it's, again, kind of an interesting time right now because based on market cycle logistics, it seems like we should have had a correction by now. And some argue that we just did. Not too long ago, in the last month or two, we saw a little bit of a correction. And so maybe that's the only correction we're going to see for a while. But a lot of things are going on right now with our country politically. And what's happening is we have a lot of the fundamentals are still working in our favor. So because of tax reform, because of deregulation, you're seeing increase in profits, you're seeing increase in growth, you're seeing a decrease or at least maintaining of low unemployment. These are all fundamental factors that contribute to a market that will continue going up. So I don't know that we're going to see a huge crash anytime soon. I'm kind of optimistic that we're going to continue to see steady eddy growth for a little bit longer here. Now, that's not to say that we won't see a 7 to 15% correction in the next 6 months, 12 months, 20 months. We might.
Right. But because you plan for that in your assessment and in your report of findings, right, you have diversity happening with each of your clients in such a way that that 7 to 15% doesn't really affect people that poorly.
Right. And I have to remind my clients that if the market goes down 7 to 15%, that doesn't mean you went down that much. When we say, quote unquote, the market, typically we're talking about the S&P 500. Mm-hmm. As an advisor, I don't take my clients' money and just throw it into the S&P 500 and hope for the best, because they could do that without my help.
Right.
So when the market is down, whatever it is, 5% or 10%, oftentimes my clients are down significantly less than that or not even down at all. And they call me scratching their heads wondering why. So that's always a fun conversation.
Right. I know that we did that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we actually have anything in the stock market. I actually know we don't because I'm not a risk taker like that. I work really hard for my money and right now I'm just not willing. And you're cool with that. So you meet me where I am. Eventually we'll get there. But I know that I emailed you because I had read some report and I was that girl. I was like, Kamron, they said this and this and that. And honestly, this is why I stay away from watching the news most of the time. And you actually sent a blanket email to your entire population of clients because I think you probably had more than just me calling because it was a kind of a big thing that came out.
Correct.
And we haven't lost any money. In fact, I think we're doing pretty well. So It's like you said. And so I'm really grateful for your even keel, easy, steady, calm presence in the face of what could potentially be a huge disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The media, we have to remember, is a for-profit industry, and they don't make a lot of money if they get on television and say, hey, everyone, the market's doing okay today. Enjoy the rest of your day. They make money when they get on TV and say, the sky is falling, and everyone tunes in. So you kind of have to take a lot of what they say with a big grain of salt.
That's good to know. I mean, I kind of, like I said, I stay away from it most of the time.
Right.
Well, I am so happy that you were here to share some of the insight that you have, and hopefully my listeners have been enlightened in a way. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to me. But even better, how do they find you?
Good question. So they can reach out to you if that's easier for them. If they want to look at my information, I have a website, which is my first initial K as in kangaroo, second initial N as in Nancy, a dash, and then the word advisor, ADVISOR.com. So KN-advisor.com.
Awesome. And I know that you aren't super keen on social media, but you're getting back to it. So eventually we'll find you on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff, I'm sure.
I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but also my industry is so heavily regulated that it's a challenge to have a lot of my business on social media because the regulators really hammer down on us about that. So.
Yeah, I understand that a lot. In chiropractic, we can't have sensational advertising even if the person that I adjusted no longer has cancer. Right. I can't say I cured cancer because I didn't. I gave them an adjustment and their body did with that what it did.
Yeah.
So I totally understand regulation. Yeah. Well, I am so grateful for the information. I'm so grateful for your leadership in my life and in my financial health.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your doctoring ability for our checkbook. It's really good.
Thank you.
All right, Kamron, I'm so glad you were here today. And listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. I can't wait to have you hear our next episode. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Get Your Head On Straight with Dr. Elizabeth Hafer. Visit wellconnectedchiro.com for more details from the show blog post and to learn what Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic can do for you. To learn more about Dr. Hafer and her practice, you can find her at Well Connected Chiropractic in Mission Viejo, California by visiting wellconnectedchiro.com for more information.